Hey y'all, welcome! I'm so excited that you've joined me today to talk about the DIY stair renovation project. This project was a beast. It took me 5 days, morning to night, but the result was incredible and it was extremely affordable. So I just wanted to come and share with you about the process and hopefully encourage you. Our home was built in 1983, and at some point they must have made a change to the stairs to add on the wood backing and the laminate on the sides, maybe when they changed out the flooring around 20 years ago. And when you look at other houses in the neighborhood, they just have the carpeted floating stairs. So ours were definitely unique that we needed to demo it and kind of get it back down to the bare bones. So besides the aesthetic issues that were going on, there was also a big issue with dirt because they would get trapped and stuck between where the stair treads were carpeted and then the backing. So it was a situation, and I knew that it needed a change. So I started to do some research just to see what the options were. So the first step was to pull up a little bit of carpet on the tread to see if the tread was actually in fact wood. A lot of times they'll build stairs with plywood. I was pretty sure since it was a floating step that it was gonna be wood, and it was in fact pine, which pine is a softer hardwood, but there's homes built 100 years ago that still have working pine floors. So I was like, if it works for them, it'll work for us. So the demo wasn't too bad. We pulled off the wood from the back, the laminate that was surrounding the side of the stairs, which actually revealed a hardwood that was kind of bumpy. So I took some joint compound and just flattened it out a little bit and left some texture, which I think gives it kind of a industrial feel, but still modern with the white paint. So once I found the right hex bit from the hardware store to remove the brackets from the sides so we could take those steps off, then I went to work removing the staples. And that was some work. And I did not have the correct tool at the time, but in my ignorance, I didn't know that there was a better tool, and I was just trying to keep the cost low. But when we did the plywood flooring upstairs and we removed that carpet, we got a better tool. So the tool pictured here worked so well, and I wish that I would have had it in the project. So another thing I was not expecting was the amount of dirt that was gonna be involved with pulling the carpet up from those steps. It was seeped underneath, it had been there a long time, and it just came billowing out. It was definitely a better project done outside, probably with some gloves and a mask. And yeah, you can learn from the mistake I made. Once all the carpet and the staples were removed, I cleaned it off each step with some light soapy water just to get all the dirt off. Then I filled in each hole on the stair with some wood putty. I did that just so it could have a more clean look, and I also did it just to avoid splinters. Another area that I had some issues with was at the top. That's where the risers were, and I didn't feel confident that I could take the risers off and build a new one, or that the old one wouldn't break. So I wanted to keep those in place in order to not get too over my head in this process. So I left them on, and I sanded the steps of the top while they were still attached. And that was extremely messy. Going back, I probably would have tried a little bit harder to remove those risers, but I was working with what I had at the time. Then with the risers, there were actually some pretty big gaps once we removed that carpet. So I took some foam, expanding foam, and filled it in on each side and then cut it down flush with the side of the plywood. And now you can't even tell once I painted over it. I think I used a little bit of caulking to smooth it out, and it looks really great. Once all the steps were prepared to be stained, I stained them a color that was close to the flooring, just because I knew we wouldn't be changing that soon. And then I used a Minwax 1-coat poly. And I found this product and they said it dries a lot quicker and you can use less coats. I think I ended up doing 2 coats in the end, and it's been a very durable finish, and especially for how often we use the stairs. 3.5 years later, I've been very happy with it. I spray painted the stair brackets and the hardware a matte black, and I loved how that turned out, just giving an industrial modern vibe to that. And then I had to figure out a solution for the gaps because we had a small child at the time. Now we have 2, and I didn't want any children falling between the steps, and it was a big enough gap that could definitely happen. So I came up with a solution for that. I needed a cheap solution, and I definitely didn't know how to get bars in the wood. So what I came up with was these curtain rod brackets from Ikea that were $2 a piece, and solid metal, very sturdy. And then I got some metal conduit piping, which costs about $3 for 8 feet. And I spray painted the brackets and the pipes a matte black, and I was just so happy with how it turned out. The look just fit the whole thing and just gave a very awesome aesthetic while keeping it safe. So the last step I did on them at the time was to put a safety strip. I got some 80 grit safety strip from Amazon, and it just really helps to give something for your foot to catch on so you can avoid more slips. So a fun quarantine project that I did, because I had some satin black spray paint on hand, was to take off the banister railing and take it outside and spray paint it. And when I put it back on, it just really added that clean, modern feel and kind of solidified the whole project. I was pretty proud of myself because I took it off by myself and carried it outside with 2 children around. So that was fun. This was a physically exhausting DIY. Just working those 5 days, morning to night. At one point, all of the steps were off and it got to the point where we really needed to get them back on. So there was some pressure there, but it was so fulfilling and personally empowering to complete this project. It was also a great catalyst for understanding the power of paint and how drastically that can change your environment, just giving you a more clean environment or energizing environment. Whatever environment you're looking for, paint can radically change that. It's been 3.5 years since I completed this Reno, and I have to say it's held up so well. And in the beginning, I would always call them my reclaimed wood steps because they're not perfect, but they tell a story, and I love that piece and part of our home. When our friends come over, like when we have people over for the first time, they'll walk in and go, whoa, those stairs, like they're so beautiful. And it's just fun. It's fun to have that as a welcome into our home. I really appreciate you joining me and learning about this DIY process, and I hope that it just encourages you to do other projects yourself and that it can inspire you to dwell aware.